Hello and welcome, guys. Hi. Hi. So we are here, episode 41 of We
40.
All Have Stuff. So, Alessia, I have a question for you. Um,
I might have an answer.
okay. Have you ever had someone in your life who is constantly pressing your buttons looking for a reaction?
Girl, girl,
Don't we all, right?
don't we all? There's probably there's a severity of ones that cross my mind. I'm like, well, do you want me to talk about the ones that are like minimal? Do you want to talk about the trauma in my life? Like, which one are we going to? But yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I thought today would be really a good opportunity for us to talk about a cool, trendy way that people are learning to protect their peace without escalating that situation. Okay, so have you ever heard of gray rocking?
No, I haven't. And the fact that I haven't heard about this when I literally have practiced it, I teach it, I live by it, I stand by it. I think it's needed in so many situations for a boundary because I'm a queen of a boundary. And I think
Love
what you're
that.
talking about when we talk about this topic is it's the way to set a boundary for yourself so you don't react or give in to what's happening.
Yes. Okay, so I'll define it. Basically, gray rocking is a method of communication with high conflict people. So this could be like toxic friends, people who are always looking for an argument, always baiting you. The classic narcissist, obviously. People who have some other types of personality traits like borderline, like really enjoy high conflict, high toxicity. And these people who thrive on getting an emotional reaction out of you. So the
I do want to say too, as much again, I think there's a spectrum of this too, where we're talking about narcissism, personality disorders, etc. And
yeah,
then I do think there's like the range of just emotionally unstable people or
yes,
dysregulated people who don't know what to do when they're not getting their way or, don't
right.
know what to do in general when they're highly emotional. So they're going to try to like pull you in and sucker you into their stuff.
100%. So this type of method can be helpful with a bunch of different people in your life. It could be coworkers, it could be ex-partners, it could be family members, friends that are kind of like friends of convenience where there's always drama, there's always chaos. Um, so basically the point of it is to make yourself emotionally unavailable and emotionally uninteresting. So you want to be boring, you want to be neutral, you want to be unresponsive. So why do you think that would work with someone who's high conflict?
Well, I would say a high conflict person, they're comfortable in conflict, right? So you're not gonna get anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know this, that whether it's a manipulation tactic or just I want to argue because I don't know what to do with my emotion or I'm losing power in a power dynamic, it's like, let me bait you, like you said, you use the word bait, and I was like, yes, it's
Yeah,
I want to like hook you in and pull you in for whatever emotional needs I need. And
sure.
if you're not giving that to somebody and you're able, well, I would say the hardest part is it helps you also stay in on your side. Because
Right.
the minute we take that bait, what do? We react,
Mm-hmm.
we're suckered in,
Yeah,
we have an emotional response that we don't love. It gets us nowhere, and we're in this. That's that cyclical
yeah,
conflict cycle because that's the kind of conflict that's not resolution based. It's just
right,
conflict for arguments and toxicity.
right.
So
So you're basically in an endless argument with someone that you're never going to win, and you very likely will end up compromising to find an end to this discussion, this debate, this argument. So you're
right.
never going to be the one who comes out on top, like, ooh, we really got into it, and I feel great about that. You never will, because this
Right.
person will never let you out of that cycle. And
But do this. I think this is going to help for our listeners. Like, give an example. Kind of when I was even like, "What is it?" Like,
hmm
give an example of what X person might say, and if you could do an example of how maybe you would take the bait and react, and what that looks like versus when you learn to protect your peace and do what is this called?
gray rocking.
Gray rocking. I keep
Yep.
calling it granny rocking. So gray rocking. When you start learning this, how
Yeah.
it sounds different and what it looks like.
Sure. Okay, so let's say that you have a friend that is constantly needing stuff from you. They're constantly in high demand. They always are the center of attention, right? And then let's say you have a need. You're going through something, you express it to them. they don't show up for you, and at that point you express to them, hey, like, my feelings are kind of hurt. I needed you a week ago. I expressed this to you. You weren't really there. And then I see you out and about with other friends and you haven't checked on me once. They come back at you and start with the gaslighting, like, well, I was listening to you. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say. And you're like, well, okay, my feelings were hurt. I expected a little bit more, like, can I do something for you? What do you need? How can I support you? And they come back at you with something else, like, well, you're never there for me. And eventually you start questioning yourself, like, maybe I'm the bad friend. Like, maybe this is just them returning my energy. So, what are you going to do? Start apologizing. This is what you should not do, because this is what they're going to be banking on, right? Okay, well, I'm not at fault. I made a decision that was for me because, hey, you never show up for me. And you're like, no, I know in my spirit that I show up for this person as a great friend. I'm an awesome friend, but this conversation has me thinking otherwise. So what are you going to do now? I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to feel that way. Like, my feelings were just hurt and I didn't realize that you were hurting too. And you're pulling away and maybe that's why you've been distant, and they just keep coming back at you. Well, yeah, I mean, it's always about you, right? You're never going to win this endless cycle of they've never done something wrong. And now you're questioning yourself. You feel emotionally invested in this. You're upset. You're compromising the fact that you wanted an apology because this was a place where someone should have shown up for you. That's route A. This is what not to do with a person like this.
And I would say in that, what's red flaggy in that, just so we can teach a little, is there's no accountability. So as like a good, this situation you named a good, like a friend, friendships, right? A good friend would at least be owning their side and trying to understand your side and not putting the blame on you for everything.
Right. Right. So option B, this is what gray rocking would look like. You express to them, like I said, you didn't show up for me. I'm actually really upset about that. I just wanted to let you know how I was feeling. And they come back at you with the, well, you never show up for me. It's all about you. You're all the drama. It's always about you. You're center of attention. And you go back and forth a little bit. You kind of engage, well, I don't feel that way. I just wanted to let you know how I was feeling. Now is the time, because they realize they're reeling you in a little bit. Oh, we're getting into the back and forth. They make it about you. Well, you don't ever show up for me. I felt this way. That's why I didn't ask about you. It's like not my business. I can't really help you anyway. You're just a boo-hoo. And you can say, okay, just thought I should let you know how I feel.
Right.
Period.
If you come to any of my clients know I always am like, period. End of sentences, period, helps you with your own boundaries.
Yep.
I already have explained and set my boundary or expressed my needs. And then I feel like I'm getting pulled in, suckered in, and that means the conversation's going too far. And so then we have to say, okay, that's fine. Until we can, like, you can own your part. I'm just expressing myself, period.
Right.
And a lot of times, I think the hardest part of this thing for people to practice it, like once you start practicing it, you get better at it. But the hardest part is like when they're poking the bear, you want to be defensive, right? You want to defend your side.
Yeah.
You want to jump in and be like, wait a second, let me tell you what I've done. And like defend or apologize. But then that doesn't put the period, which keeps you, I call it dancing. Like when we say fighting, keeps you dancing with that person. So then the next thing you know, you're wasting all your energy and time and you're in the toxic pattern because now you're actually, which is sad, you're now part of the dance instead of how do I not even start dancing with this person?
Right. So a couple of key things. You want to keep your answers short. And there's actually it's called the BIFF method. I think it's brief, intentional, firm, and something. I have to look it up. But I came across this, and it's basically how to structure a response in a text or an email to someone who is emotionally baiting you. And you can use this in verbal cues too. But basically, the idea is you're neutral, you're firm, you don't get emotional, you don't share private details like your feelings or what you're doing, and you are consistent about it. You're not doing the roller coaster of sometimes I engage with them and I'm emotional, and then the next time I'm going to be firm. Because what that tells them is, I don't know where your threshold is, so I'm going to keep pushing you. I'm going to get hostile. I'm going to get aggressive with you because sometimes you're nice and sometimes you are a pushover. You have to be consistent about it. So when you decide that this is the right methodology, you stick with it. And that will slowly teach that person. Yeah.
My question for you is, because this is, if I'm a listener,
Yeah.
I feel like my clients, this is kind of the thing that I would hear and ask about, right?
Mhm.
Well,
Right.
at what point, just like we asked the question, at what point, I think we had this on an episode before, at what point do you try harder? At what point do you give up? So in this situation, what point do you own your accountability and be vulnerable versus knowing when it's that time to start pulling out this tool? Because the reality is, right, we don't want a client saying, like the cutoff thing. Like I think I taught
Yeah.
that once, like, oh, well, this person upset me, so boom, you're cut off. Oh, well, this person upset me. I don't want them to gaslight me. So, oh, I'm going to start, using this new tool I have, which is just being cold and like,
Yeah.
distant and precise and not showing emotional energy. So how would you explain to somebody what the difference is between knowing when to pull
I
out
think,
this tool?
sure. I think when you start using this methodology is when you have a couple of interactions with a person that you always feel you're coming out beaten down, compromising, or giving up on something that's important to you. You always feel like you're not heard. It's coming back on you, that there's no accountability from the other person, and it's very one sided. So when you start seeing that pattern, this is a good indicator that this kind of communication, it's high conflict. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
When should you be vulnerable? When the other person is capable and willing of hearing you, supporting you, or seeing where you're coming from. Because at that
Or
point, you
their
could be like,
effort
you
is
know, I
there.
disagree. Or there's effort, right? So you're sharing something, and the other person says, "Listen, I don't agree with you. I don't see where you're coming from, but I'm sorry that was how you experienced it, right? I did not intend for that to happen. I don't see it, but you know what? Let me make it up to you." That's a person that you could be, okay, you know what? Cool, let's work this out. Let me
Right.
share my continue to share my feelings. But if that person, every time you're vulnerable, every time you share something, every time you make a request for, hey, I whatever, this happens a lot in workplace environments and with like co-parents especially, like someone in a work environment, hey, you borrowed my keyboard the other day, like can I have it back? And they're just hostile. Okay, but I
Mm-hmm.
have a full work day. I need it too. And you're like, yeah, but that's mine. And they're just making you feel terrible about it. Well, you didn't give me a time limit. I didn't know I need to replace it. Whatever. In a situation like that, you're like, all right, dude, cool. I'm never going to let you borrow stuff again, period. That's it. And you move forward. High conflict conversations that you cannot avoid. This is a perfect
Right.
example of
I feel like, I guess my mind went to this too,
yeah.
because part of me would be like, we're talking, I think, because I think there's different situations, right? I'm thinking about multiple, and I think it's different for
Yeah.
everybody. But like, this might be a friend where I'm like, you know what, my boundary is I don't want to be friends with this person anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it might lead into starting some of this where it's
Right.
like, I'm going to start just using this, see how they react. It's going to show me
Yeah.
more who they are. And
Hmm.
now I realize I don't want to be your friend anymore. So now, bye.
Yeah.
With other situations, like you said, like at work, sometimes you have to be around people.
Yeah.
Your boss, you might have to be around your boss.
Sure.
Co-parenting, exes, if you have kids, you're gonna have to be in each other's lives.
Right.
Parents, it might be, so you can still set a boundary, but some people don't want to fully be like, no,
Yeah.
let me cut this person off. So we talked about it before of, what does the relationship look like? And maybe when do you have to pull it out because you're still going to be around this person?
Right. So, I mean, understanding like why does this work, right? This works because these are people that live and breathe for your emotional energy.
Right.
And when you're not giving it to them, it kind of depletes them. It's boring. It's not interesting. Here's the couple things to look out for though. It may escalate some behavior because you're going to have people that are on the more severe side of these personality traits or behavior patterns where this is just one weapon in the arsenal to get you to react. So there may be escalation of other things. There may be, more kind of harassing behaviors. There may be more efforts to feel like subservient. Oh, how can I love bomb you to get back to me? How can I make you feel reeled in without an emotional conversation, right? I can't get an angry reaction out of you, so how can I connect with you emotionally somewhere else? So that's something to keep an eye out for because it can be a little sinister sometimes, like, oh, I actually didn't even see that coming. They started talking to me nicely and communicating nicely, but then they did favors for me at work. They took on jobs that I didn't want to take. Interesting. And then suddenly, you're getting this short end of the stick some other way. So I think it's important though, let's time out here because there are situations that I do not believe it is healthy or wise to use this method. Okay, so this is where I want you guys to pay attention. This is useful most of the time, but if there's physical danger, you're in an abuse cycle, or if you have the opportunity to set firmer limits and boundaries another way first, you should try that.
Yeah,
So
I
here's the
love
thing.
those.
Yeah, because if you are in physical danger and you start putting up a very firm, cold, neutral wall with this person who is constantly trying to get in your space, the physical danger could escalate for
Right.
them to get a reaction out of you. That's what I was just saying.
Hmm.
Another thing is if you are in like an emotional abuse cycle or, a verbal abuse cycle, not necessarily all physical, there are other ways that this person will escalate to make you feel threatened, unsafe, unprotected, lower your boundaries, and get to you in a very unfortunately unsafe way. So that's when I would say be very mindful of your situation. If this is something that you're not around the person or you need firm boundaries because nothing else has worked, this is a really great tool. So that's not to scare anybody, but I think it's important to be very aware of the situation that you're in and know that not all tools are always useful and correct. So this is one that you want to be very judicious about using.
Right. I
So
think that's
just
the hard situation because, it's hard. Like that's where things get sticky, right? When you mention like the
yes.
physical or emotional abuse,
Mhm.
it does get worse.
Mhm.
Like I think that's scary. It is
Yeah.
scary. I don't think it, I know it's scary, and you know it's going to happen, and then you're scared because it's like what's going to happen on the other end, but it's the reality of needing it to be there. But
Yeah.
knowing, I would say when you even mentioned like the physical aspect of like abuse, like when I think of domestic violence and domestic abuse cases, it's like
Mhm.
I would just suggest you know where your support and safety net is once you, if
Yeah.
you're going to implement something.
Sure. Yeah. Um, so, I mean, can this be a useful tool? Yes. And I mean, I've used it myself. So, I think obviously speaking from experience, and I think we've all done it maybe without realizing what the strategy is. You start distancing yourself from people that you're like, I don't have the energy to engage with this person right now. So
Right.
when you answer, like, okay, period, that's what this is, so you're actively kind of practicing what this boundary could look like. If the
Right.
person continues after you're like, okay, and they're like, hey, what's wrong? That's your opportunity to kind of say, okay, do I continue with this and say, I don't have the space for this right now. Or I'm actually not okay. Like let me gauge where this conversation can go. No, I'm not comfortable with the level of hostility. I'm not comfortable with the, accusations or the lack of support or whatever. And at that point you can kind of say, okay, step 2. Let me continue because now I
Right.
really know where this is going. But,
Right.
is it helpful? Yes. Is it very helpful with certain personality types and certain relationship dynamics? 100%.
Right. I think it's hard because, when we talk about power dynamics, this is definitely something that goes into a power dynamic, which,
Yeah.
the more you sit there and argue with somebody, it's like it gives them more power. And then the more you do that, it's kind of like I always say it does this. I say the same with like people pleasers or somebody who doesn't like to start conflicts. Like this person knows the more I push your buttons, the more
Yeah.
power I'll get because you're not going to say anything. So this kind of starts leveling that out, which is depending on the person over here who wants and needs the power. That's where it can get iffy.
Yeah.
It's definitely a hard thing, but I would say it's needed because we said the same things when we talked about boundaries on an episode. When you
Yeah.
start practicing this kind of stuff, you'll see who somebody is, right? I
Yeah.
practice this a lot. It's interesting because when you first brought it up, I talk a lot how I've had to work on my anger. If something even triggers me in anger,
Mm-hmm.
I know I need a boundary for myself. So a lot of times, not even because the other person, but say I get in a fight with my man or something, if me and him start going a little tit for tat and I start feeling my anger, and
Yeah.
then I can see him kind of getting heated up too. It's like I have to start using this tactic of like, hey, conversation's over. I have
Yeah.
nothing else to say, period. Not just for him, but for me, because I know I struggle with that part of,
Right.
if he keeps saying stuff or if I gets defensive, okay, so how do I keep this short, sweet, clear, and to the point of I'm not continuing this conversation. I have nothing else to say. We can continue tomorrow, period.
Right. Yeah.
Because if I try to overly explain myself or if I start getting heated, it's like
Yeah.
I'm going to go here, which in turn that other person is usually going to go here too. And so I'm already aware that the conflict's happening.
Yeah.
So I think that's just like a good tool to know for yourself. Like you have to know where your energy is. And if
Yeah.
you know you get fed into stuff, that's what the person on the other side, like when you mentioned it earlier, I kept thinking, I learned it in when I worked at a rehab when I was younger. They used to always say misery loves company. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if
Yeah.
your best friend's about to relapse, they used to say be careful because they're going to want you to go down with them. So
Right.
watch who your friends are. And I that always stuck with me because it's like if I'm pissed off and I'm highly emotional and can't ground myself, usually you
Mm-hmm.
want somebody in it with you because the chaos of two people feels better than you being in it by yourself. And so
Yeah.
that always gives me like a tool of like this person's having their own emotional stuff and
Mm-hmm.
I can't go in it with them because that's really what they want because it feels
Right.
better when we're both in chaos for them.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing to remember if you're kind of struggling with structuring this kind of conversation, if you reread your text or your email back and there's any emotion in it, take it out. It should be boring, it should be not interesting. So if you throw something in there that's like, this is hard for me too, take it out. Because that
And
person doesn't
jabs.
know. Yep. And
I think
jabs.
the
Yep.
thing jabs are the thing people I notice struggle with the most because that is
Mhm.
highly, like you said, it's emotional, but you think it's like, no, it's
Yeah.
not. I kind of was just like, no, that's like showing the other person that you're emotional and you're hurt. So, like, let me throw a dig before I end the conversation. Don't do
Mhm.
it. Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah, to keep that out. And I think the number one thing that people mistake about this communication style, method, whatever you want to call it, it's not rude. And the
Right.
person on the other side is going to be like, you're being so nasty. You're being so rude. If you are doing that, you're probably doing it right. If you're getting that reaction and they take it as rude, okay, that's because they want you to stop. It's not getting the intended response. So
Hmm.
you're not going to be coming at somebody, you're not criticizing them, you're not being disrespectful, you're just being boring.
Right. And I think that's what you want. And that's back to what we said about seeing who another person is on the other side. Because if you texted me, Alessia, conversation over, we'll talk about this tomorrow, and I was a healthy version, right? It's like, oh,
Hmm.
I'm aware that Gabby's kind of at her limit. So I'll be like, okay, this is frustrating, but sure, we'll talk tomorrow.
Right.
But if I was like, what do you mean you're done with the conversation? I can't believe you. You're a shitty friend. It's like,
Yeah.
you're going to see how I can't handle that instead of me respecting your boundary that you just put up.
Right.
Because you
Exactly.
can be cold and distant, and I can be like, okay, she's over it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Time out.
Right. Exactly. So I think that that's kind of a good barometer for how you're doing. If they respond with more of the same baiting kind of response, or then that might be an indicator like, okay, well, you're feeding into it, you're a little too emotional still. But if they come back at you with criticism, or like you said, a violation of your boundary automatically, they're not understanding, they're not supportive, you're doing it right.
And I need to throw this in because you said it earlier too. I think the
Mm.
hardest one and the most confusing one, and I think about certain personality characteristics that have this, and it's just an abuse tactic. That's just what it
Yeah.
is, which is
Right.
sad. But it's the niceness that comes after that. That love bombing thing of like,
Yep.
oh, I can't get them to react at all to this. So now let me be like, hey, you know what I was thinking? Ugh,
Yeah. Remember that
remember
one
that
time?
time that we had a blast and you're like, but when you especially when you're younger or you don't
Yeah.
know how these high conflict relationships go or you've never been exposed
Yeah.
to one, it confuses you. And that's the
Yeah.
point of it, right? It confuses
Right.
you to be like, wait a second, this person is being so nice to me now. How are we just arguing 20 minutes ago? And
Right.
and then that's the bait. Like when you keep saying the word bait, there's so many
Mhm.
different tactics to bait. And
Yep.
still, if I said, "Hey, I don't want to talk until tomorrow. Let's rehash this topic,"
Right.
and then you hit me 20 minutes, a half hour later with, "Oh my God, I miss you so much," though, and like totally not even like it's like
Right.
nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
And when that causes that confusion and that's that total 180, you have to be cautious of that because it's
Mhm.
like, are we just negating the fact that you were
What are
just
your
being
intentions? Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah,
now
it's
you
like the
just want a
community.
reaction.
Right. And like you're saying that, and I can think of a one single coworker that I had years ago where we didn't get along. It
Yeah.
wasn't disrespectful, it wasn't anything like that, but they were always like, they worked there much longer than I did. I had a different job, but they were like snippy with me all the time and like, oh, well, you didn't do, we worked at like a pain center. So it was like, oh, you didn't do my chart for this patient. And I'm like, it's not my patient. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It was always like that. But then one time we got into it because there was a miscommunication about me taking on some of her patients and doing their blood pressure or whatever. It was a whole thing. And she got really nasty with me. And I was just like, okay, like this is not the time or place for us to have this discussion. So later when we clock out, let's just figure out what went wrong. And really nasty. And like an hour later, she was like, knock, knock. Hey, do you want lunch? On me. And I was just like, this is so gross and weird. And
Right.
I was like,
You're like,
no,
you need your
I'm
shit done
good.
tomorrow, don't you?
Yeah, right. So I was just like, okay, but that's like a perfect example because I think that was the first real experience like that I had where it clicked for me like this is not normal. This is
Right.
weird. And that I think about that all the time. So this is what we're talking about. You need to be mindful of it's can be retaliatory when you start implementing this, but it can also be the let me try something different and confuse you.
Right.
So,
Or it can go the opposite. I mean, I feel like when you say bait, this could be a whole nother topic of a
I
conversation.
know.
I feel like I always say that. But when you said bait, I'm like, there's so many strategies because I think about the threats. I think a lot of people give in to threats because threats are
Yeah,
scary.
right.
Right? So there's like so many like dramatic threats. Like if you don't answer me, X, Y, or Z is gonna happen. And then that makes that pool. And
Hmm.
that's hard because you have to say, like, is this true? Is this person, are they able or they're capable to
Yeah,
do X, Y, and Z? And that's
right.
a scary one too. But holding that ground of knowing like I'm confident and this is a threat because this is what you do to try to get what you want. It's a
Right.
hard thing to look for too.
Yeah, 100%. So, anyway, I thought that this would be something good to talk about because, we're always talking about communication styles, we're always talking about boundaries, ways to try to navigate difficult relationships and communication with people. So, um, yeah, I thought this was kind of,
Yeah.
important to talk about and something that is all over like TikTok, like, oh, gray route,
Mhm.
whatever. So, yeah, I hope all of
I
you
I
learned.
want to I want to say this before we end really quick.
Yeah,
You also can keep it simple, like all I don't know, like the way you described it, like keep it emotion out of it, keep it precise, keep it simple
yeah,
without being a dick. Let me just say that because it
yeah,
does you don't have
exactly.
to come off as nasty when you say it. It can just be direct and to the point. Does
Yep,
not mean that you're being rude,
that's
mean, or whatever. But a lot of
right.
times people can rationalize like I was short and I was a dick, and so I think they got the point, which I don't want
No,
people to take from this like, hey, I can just be nasty in any
yeah,
way. It's
be
just
a
like
jerk.
short and to
No,
the point.
right,
Short, simple can still be kind. It can
right.
just be neutral.
Yeah, exactly. Brief, I think Biff. Brief, informative, friendly, and firm. I
There
think
we
that's what
go.
it is.
Biff.
So, Biff, let's biff it, guys.
Let's
So
biff
keep up
it.
with that. Let us know if you've ever tried this tactic, if you've realized that you've used it without knowing exactly what it was, and how it turned out for you. And I hope you learned something today.
Gray rocking. I learned something. I keep calling it granny rocking, but we're gonna go gray rocking. I love a
Yay.
gray rocking vibe. I think everybody needs it at some point.
Amen. Well,
Amen.
thanks for listening, guys. As always, we all have stuff, and we'll see you
So,
next time.
see you next time, team.
Bye.